So this morning I'm looking at all my boards, which are over there, and putting them face to face, good face to good face. They're all pretty good. I had a little rock here, but I didn't notice this. There's like a little, you can see it in the light, bouncing off there a little bit. So that, I wouldn't call that snipe exactly. Snipe is usually like a pretty good divot as you're going in and out of the planer blades, which yesterday was just face joining. The tip on that when you're planing and if you want to avoid snipe, is when you're infeeding it, you want to lift up a hair, just a little tension on the infeed end, and when it comes out, you want to lift up a little bit on the board as it comes out. You don't want the weight of the board to pull down because that'll throw the end of the board up into the knives as they're spinning and create snipe, which is a divot in your wood. This is more like, as I was pushing it through, I didn't force it down enough, so there's actually a raised section right there. So I've got this scraper here. I'm just going to go ahead and flatten that out with a scraper real quick. And then this is the face that's going to go down. So I'm going to plane the other side. All the boards look pretty good. So might be able to get this glued up today. And also, there's some big poplar parts back here. And I got this other thing that I have to make, which is the butler's pantry is here. And I'm going to make this little coat hanger situation here from that material. So I've got to mill this part, and the two parts that the hooks are going to be on. And then I'm going to use like a plywood beadboard on the back wall, so when your coats are hanging. The lower section is really more for the boys with their backpacks and everything. And this wall, if you didn't put something there, it would just get all dinged up and grubby and everything else. And then there's going to be a little spot here for them to hang, a couple hooks so they can hang their dog leashes out there and all that good stuff. 6'4", it's pretty good with the height of your stuff, because most coats are only maybe 30 inches or so long. If there's a long one that hangs long, it's not a big deal. But yeah, she agreed to that. I owed her just this, but as we were discussing it, it was obvious that she needed more storage for things like that. So anyhow, back to this. I'll show you this real quick. I didn't tune this scraper. It's just been hanging on the wall for a while, but it should be okay. This is a cabinet scraper, and that did the trick, pretty much. I'm going a little bit on an angle. Just shaving that right off. Now I'm a lot smoother here. If anything, if there was a little bit of a divot, I'd be okay. But with a raised spot, what that would do is as you feed it through the table on the planer, it would raise the board up higher up into the knives in this spot. And it's going to give you an uneven, you won't have as flat as a surface on the other side. So when I say cabinet scraper, this is designed for veneers, right? Because veneers are very, very thin, so you can take off just a little bit. If you glue two pieces of veneer together, there could be like a slight bit of imperfection, but you're dealing with, 64ths of an inch or smaller. You could see it, you could feel it, and something like this just will flatten those things out without removing all the material. I could put a weight on this, or I could wet down the table first. It's cold and dry in here this morning. It's better than cold and wet, I'll tell you that much. That's pretty good. When I pass this through to plane the other side, I'll get the other side perfect on all of them, and then I'll probably do one smooth pass back on this side again. This was the most squirrely board. It did actually remain flat tonight, or over last night. And there's this little spot right here that's a little out of whack. But we're in pretty good shape because I'm going to be taking 4 inches off of this and a ½ inch off that edge. So I think we're going to be golden. And this is the side I wanted up because it's nice and uniform in color, versus this side that has the sapwood kind of on the edge there, which is fine. If you wet that, it wouldn't be that light. There's going to be some of that on the top anyhow, but I'm trying to keep the top as uniform as possible. Yeah, with that. All right, it's time for thickness planing. Joiner mode. Planer mode. Have to lower this a hair. So I can flip this up. Put these little spring-loaded clamps on here. My dust collection will go there. There's a bunch of dust on this table at the moment. And one of the first things that's nice to do is this material here. This is my block for adjusting my knives, which I did yesterday. So this is called Waxolit. It's a product that it won't contaminate your wood, but you wipe it on the table and it's like greasing your table, you know. It allows the wood to slide through with less friction, so the machine's not fighting friction. It's a very smooth, like chrome plated stainless steel. I don't know, I think it's probably just polished stainless steel. I never looked that up. The table surface here, and it's cold enough right now where I can go ahead and buff this, but when it's warmer you kind of have to let it sit for a minute. And you can leave a little bit of that on there, and that'll just help glide your boards through. Alright, I gotta check my thickest point, which is probably gonna be the height on this top board here. I gotta set that just about exactly at that, run a pass through, and then I'll see what's going on with the board. I'll probably see a texture on there from this kind of like a knurled wheel. And then that'll tell me I can adjust this like a quarter of a turn and get the right pass. And keep in mind, I'm trying to do this, make them all the same, but also remove the least amount of material at the same time. Because I'm done with this. I'm over this friggin' part of the project. I still have the legs, like the center post, it's 2 parts, and then the cross member parts that I'll have to mill, but they're not as important. And they're all thicker, so I want a heavier base than top. So I'm going to go ahead and do this, but I thought you might enjoy seeing me set that up. Pencil lines right here tells me this was doing that on this side. On this piece here, no pencil lines. You see a texture in here and pencil lines. So this side of this board was out of whack. Okay, so the blades that are in here, they're a brand new set of blades. And I'm going to put the blades that I took out back in because they're in pretty good shape still. I'm going to use that for the rough milling on the poplar for the next thing I have to do. I want to save these for my finish planing on the walnut parts, because I just, I want them to be as perfect as they can be. I don't mind if I mix these up. I mean, I've ran quite a bit of wood on this edge, and if these get mixed up a little bit, it's fine because there's no nicks in any of them. I'll try to remember to put all the used edges in the same direction and mark the package just in case I think it's important at another time. Now right now I should be sliding these in, but I'm doing this, I'm not trying to do this for speed, but talking and whatnot, you can put these blades in and have them in under a minute, no problem. And remember, you've got adjustability with these blades. So right now that's pushed all the way tight that way, and I can push it this way until it's just short of a bolt that's coming through this machine here. So they have adjustability this way. I've mentioned this before, and the beauty of that is that if you get a nick in this blade, it'll be in all three blades in the exact same spot. So if you shift the blades back and forth, you can effectively erase those nicks in your wood. So typically I push one all the way back one way, one all the way towards me, and then the next one I put somewhere in the middle. And then I adjust them as I'm milling material. And if I start seeing like little ridges basically on the lumber as I'm milling it through, then I know I've got like a little nick in there. And I'm using that term, it sounds more drastic than it is. I don't tolerate like major nicks. I'm talking about just like a little divot. You hit a hard knot or something and it puts a little line in there. It's not a big deal. The centrifugal force of the machine now will throw these locking blocks up against the back of the blades and lock them in place perfectly aligned. That simple with the Tersa head cutter on the Inca joiner planer. This is my homemade glue up jig here. We'll talk about this. I'll turn off this music. It consists of these two lower sections here. There's some plastic up on top here. They're both straight, the same level. I don't always put this top piece on, but I wanted to really cinch these boards down tight before putting the two end clamps on. What I didn't show you was the squeeze out. When I glued it, it doesn't matter. I just finished wiping everything up with a wet rag. I got the two darkest boards on the end, the two lightest boards in the center. However, after so many months, these are all going to end up being the same color. It's going to naturally change. I did the little trick. I was able to make this happen. So I've got this board doing this. I got this board doing that. I got this board doing this. I got this board doing that. That helps. This is the board that was the squirrely board. It was a real issue for me. I put this wood clamp right here to line these two up. And I had to put one on this side here as well. And we're pretty good here. I'm trying to sight this myself. So pretty straight. Just about dead on exactly 29 inches this way, which is great because 29 and 8 is 37. So that's what I want on the outside corners. And then again, the center is going to flare out to 38. And the boards I have, they're a little over 4 inches. So I might be able to get it a little bit wider than 37 inches at the very corners. The main part is the center, right, where you belly up to the table. Hang on. All right, so this is the table. I haven't really done a lot of work for the leg section yet. We're just catching up now. But on the field, we see what's going on here. So there's going to be an exact square in the center, which is this field, which is going to be 29 inches square. And then I'm going to glue up these ends on here. Now, when I glue the edge boards on the straight edge, what I'm calling the straight edges is going with the grain. I can glue them right up, no problem. But when I go to do this edge, okay, what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a tongue here. So I have to use a straight edge and a saw and set everything correct at 29 inches. Cut a straight line, I don't know, probably 3/16 of an inch deep, maybe a quarter. I haven't made this determination yet. The numbers are unimportant for me to explain this to you so that you understand it. I could draw it for you probably better. So what's going to happen here is how about if I draw it and then I show it to you? I'll do that. Let me pause this for a second. All right, so along that edge, this edge here, there's going to be a tongue. All right, so you got 1, 2, 3, 4 boards, and you've got this tongue here. And then on the edge here, there's going to be a groove, and that's going to fit right over like a puzzle piece. All right? And these pieces, each one of these has to be precise, the exact right length. They all have to have an exact 45-degree cut in. And they're all going to pop on and glue into place with clamps. And then once that's set, I'm going to put a butterfly mortise in on the corners. And it's kind of like a rough sketch of that right here. You can kind of see it on here. And then the butterfly mortise is basically like a bow tie shape. It's 2 opposing triangles in one piece. I'll show it to you. Hang on a sec. So this is a butterfly. I think this is Paduke, this orange stuff here. So you understand what's happening. If you've got a seam here, you got 2 boards, those boards can no longer separate. They can't pull apart because they're wedged in tight. You see this sort of construction on ancient structures, megalithic structures, where things have worn away, and you look at the top of 2 stones put together, and right in the top there's usually a shape like this, or like a capital letter I or something like that, where presumably they poured molten iron in there, but over the millennia it has rusted away and turned to dust. Or people came along and dug that out and used the iron to make other things. It's another discussion. But that's what's going to happen. So all 4 corners, boom, they get one of these. That holds that perimeter. It's like a frame together. It can't fall apart, can't separate, can't go anywhere. Somebody asked me in the comments on my last video from yesterday about, hey, what are you going to use? You're going to use dowels or dominoes or biscuits or whatever. So Festool makes this domino tool. I'm not going to knock that tool, all right? But what I kind of don't like about it, and this is just me, look, I'm going to be very honest with you, as I always am. I was a snob for a good solid 10, 15 years, where all I wanted to do was furniture. And that's all I did. And my furniture pieces went for a lot of money. And it's actually been a while since I've done a nice glue up like this. So I was kind of, in a way, I kind of missed a couple steps, and I was fighting it more than I needed to, and whatever. It's all going to be fine because I know what I'm doing, but it could have went a little bit smoother. And I've done dowels. I made dowel jigs. I've done that. I've done biscuits in the past. All of it. The thing is these days we now have better products. So we've got Titebond 2 wood glue. This stuff is so, and there's Titebond 3. I prefer this. This has a shorter setup time. So Titebond 3. Again, I think of that, and I could be, you guys could get on my case for this, but I'm just going to tell you what I think. I think Titebond 3 is for people that aren't as proficient with the woodworking. They need more time. If you set your stuff up right, you get all your, everything's correct. These things are milled perfect. These seams, these joints right here, it's perfectly 90 degrees, so when you put it up together, it's going to lay flat. If they're not perfectly 90 degrees, that could lead to your table having a cup to it or something. Everything has to be right. You put it up, you do a dry fit, you clamp it together, you check you just make sure everything's correct before you apply the glue. You have everything sitting here. Use the Titebond 2 glue, you're golden. 20 minutes, this stuff is set up enough to where you can take the clamps off and move the stuff around. That's pretty cool. Titebond 3 takes a lot longer to dry. That's why I'm not a fan of it. The other thing is with the domino machine. So this is just my opinion. Domino machines allow you to do butt joints. So you can cut all your parts, all your angles. You don't have to think about any joinery whatsoever, like you used to have to do in the old days when you were a real craftsman. And you can then just draw a straight line, take your domino machine. It's like a biscuit machine. If you don't know what that is, I'll show it to you. Without pausing the camera this time. And you'll see how old this is. I've been using this same Freud machine, which I barely ever use anymore, since like the 1990s. Okay? And a domino machine works the same way. See that little, that's a round blade that spins in this direction. And what this does is you lay that up, you cut into your board, and then you got a football-shaped piece of wood. It's like oriented strand board. And when that gets wet, it swells, and it keeps things from pulling apart. The domino machine is basically the same thing, except the domino it's a larger form of a dowel, basically. It's kind of kooky shaped. It's neat. It's interesting. But basically, I could take two pieces, butt them together, get all my joinery right, make a pencil line, pull it apart, insert the domino machine, cut the hole, put a dowel in there. That's basically what it is. Glue it together, and it's done. That means you could do it. Anybody could do it. Your mom could do it. Your aunt could do it. Your grandfather could do it. Your niece could do it. Your nephew could do it. It's no big deal. You know, but it's not joinery, right? So, like when I put this together, you want things typically to be able to expand and contract, but because of the way I milled this, these pieces shouldn't move that much anymore. And once I lock the frame in with the butterflies on the end, it can't expand and contract anymore. It's going to be locked hard. And some people will say you shouldn't do that, wood could crack or whatever. I've got a coffee table. You may have seen it. It's in the living room here. The center board is over 21 inches wide. And I put the frame around it, just like I'm going to do here, and I put the butterflies in. This table's over 20 years old. It's still stable. Nothing's warped. Everything's fine. So I think I know what I'm doing with this. But, yeah, so that's what's going to happen here. You can't depend on, if I cut this perfectly straight, I can't depend on that cut with just a straight up glue joint here holding that on, because it still may want to move a little bit, which is the reason I'm going to do basically the tongue and groove construction. So I've got a little bit, you'll see like a little bit of rock possibly. I'm just so far off. I mean, we're talking, I can barely feel this with my fingertips, which is great, because I can come in these seams between the boards and hit them with the cabinet scraper, and then I'll sand the whole top with a flat sheet sander, and this thing's going to be pretty dead on flat. Keep in mind, it's solid wood. It's not something you have to be overly concerned about. When you see, most of the tables that you're going to see out there today, you go to the store and you buy them, what's really going on is it's a substrate. It's like a plywood substrate. It's like a hollow core door, something like that, and then they have a wood veneer over it. So it appears to be wood, but it's not solid wood. When it comes to solid wood, there's slight imperfections here and there. That's part of the charm of it. So over time, this is going to wear in. You're going to ding it up and everything else. But the beauty of real wood is you can drop stuff on it, you can ding it, and it doesn't matter because it's all wood. It's solid, and that just, it ages. It gives it, it's beautiful. Versus like something that's veneered. If you chip that, you chip the veneer off, you can see it. It looks like crap. So the irony is that with a veneered piece, it's actually more work in a way to do that, and there's a lot more steps involved. The thing is that, and I don't know what the prices are now. Veneer, it can't be cheap. Solid wood costs a lot more money, right, for the material. That's the trade-off. But solid wood is an heirloom piece of furniture. So 300 years from now, this table's still going to be, no one's ever going to throw this thing away. It's a beautiful work of art, and it's going to be one of a kind. So it is one of a kind. It's going to be the only one like it on the planet, period. If I make you something, I design it for you. I go to your house, I look at how you're living, I look at the stuff you have. You tell me you want a coffee table, dining room table, whatever, a bed, whatever it is that you want. And I'm going to look at it. I'm going to look at the stuff that you collected over the years. We're going to talk about the parameters of the dimensions, what my parameters are for the piece, where it's going to live, and I'm going to take little design elements from the pieces that you love the most, and I'm going to incorporate them into that piece. It'll tie the whole room together in the end. and it's going to make it look like you've planned it for decades. And again, you're going to have a piece that is totally unique on the planet, period, not another one. What's interesting to me about that is there's these places here, I've mentioned this before, Pacific Design Center, places like that, or any other high-end furniture place, like a Herman Miller piece, or a Haywood Wakefield, or Roycroft going back, or Stickley, whatever. You know, you buy a Stickley table, Roycroft table, let's jump up. You know, I don't even know what the new designers are. I have no idea. But there's design houses that make furniture. They've got a furniture line. They've got a dining room table that they're selling for $30,000. You can buy a table for $60,000, $60,000, $30,000, $50,000, and it will be solid wood. A lot of the time, they're not putting the time into it that I'm putting into it, figuring it out and laying my grain out so it looks right. I know that I've got this point going this way, that point going that way. I arrange these boards for the grain. I trimmed the width of each board so that the flame looked correct on the board. I'm thinking it out like crazy. When you see the frame that's going to go around this, you see there's a pattern here, and it's more straight grain here. This is a board I split down the center. It's book matched. The other part of it's over there. The next length was the same thing. So when I put these on, I'm going to put the center of that board all the way around. Now it's not going to be an exact lineup, but these straight lines here, when at the miter, it's almost going to line up perfect. I already know that. It's going to look bitchin'. That's the sort of thing that these design houses aren't doing. Typically they're not doing that. And the interesting thing about that is let's say you spend 30 grand, 40 grand on a dining room table from a design house, designer, whatever. Well, there's going to be hundreds of those, if not thousands of them, on the planet that other people own. So those people, it's like having a Ferrari or something. It's not just one Ferrari. There's hundreds of that Ferrari out there that people own. So that's cool. It's a Rolex. Same thing. It's a status symbol thing. Like, hey, I got the same thing Warren Beatty's got. I got the same thing whoever actor you can think of off the top of your head. Brad Pitt, Angelina Jolie, whatever. That's their dining room table. I saw it in a magazine. I want to own it. Cool. Cool. You come to a guy like me. I'm not the only guy that does this. You come to another craftsman. We're going to design and make you something. It's the only one on the planet. So the irony there is it's hard for me to get that kind of money. And what I'm making is made better, thought out better. I'm selecting the grain for it, everything else. So I'm in a weird spot here with this. Honestly, if I could get known for my tables, I could do one table a month and charge enough money for that to where I could be making bank and still have a week off a month, you know, or every 2 months I could take 3 weeks off. I'd be fine, be living a happy life, spending all my time in the shop just making badass tables. But I'm a secret. Not enough people know about me. And that's the story with a lot of guys. Of course, I don't have overhead, so I can think in those terms. A lot of other guys, they've got to constantly keep work coming in. They got a couple other guys working with them. They got a family. They got a mortgage. They got all these things. So it's a higher stress level. Anyhow, it's just I'm just letting you know what's going on in my brain here. So this is where I'm at. So Andrew, if you're watching this is pretty badass. I'm pretty happy about it. And I'm going to give this a few more minutes. So stick around. I think I'm going to take it out of the clamps and we'll see what happens. What if I take it out of the clamps and it goes boing and it's not going to happen. All right, we're going to take these clamps apart. We'll see what happens here. It's probably been in the clamps a solid 45 minutes or so. On the glue, I went off on a tangent there. I forgot to tell you. Again, the Type On 2, the glue joint is stronger than the wood itself. You can watch the tests on that. Go on YouTube or something. The wood will break before the glue joint breaks. So to answer your question, no, I'm not using dominoes or biscuits or anything else because I don't need to. I'll show you this, actually. I just found this. I was thinking about how do I describe that to you. I found this in a box I forgot about. It's a pretty cool, this would be like a cheese cutting board. But each one of these rows here is from a cutting board I made back in the day. These are all about 2 inches thick. Pretty close to it, I think. Oh shoot, 2 1/4 inches thick. This is 11 3/8 by 10 1/8 approximately. And it sits, I don't know if you can see this on screen. I wasn't going to do this. On the fly, man, on the fly. This is about 6 3/16 of an inch. So if you put this on a regular table, like your dining room table, you could stand upright and you can cut cheese and whatnot. You're having a wine and cheese party sort of thing. All those cutting boards I made these cutting boards that were pretty elaborate. I was selling them for $350 a piece, plus the shipping. And a lot of people were scared to use them. A lot of people still use them and beat the hell out of them. One was used, I know for a fact, in a restaurant for years. I don't have reports of any of them falling apart. The only time there was ever any kind of issue was if people put them in the sink and let them soak in water, put them in the dishwasher. You should never do that with a wood cutting board. You're going to have problems if you do that. Never do that. But I just wanted to demonstrate that I made this thing years ago. I just found it in a box. If you want to buy this, yeah, I'd probably sell this for $400. It's pretty cool. Pretty badass. It's beautiful. But I just wanted to point that out to you, that I've made just dozens and dozens and dozens of cutting boards, and they're all fine. So leave these. I didn't over clamp these either. I got just the right amount of squeeze out. If you tension your clamps too tight, it's going to want to force your boards. You always run the risk of your boards doing something crazy. So far, so good. This is all a good sign here. So you can see a little glue on here, maybe. Wipe that up with a wet rag. I might wipe this up, and then before I leave, I may clamp all this back down. So I'm not sure how long it's going to take for me to get back to this. And that just might be a fail-safe kind of thing, because I might not, I've got a friend in from out of town, as I told you guys, and we've got to do something. I've been working the last couple of days since she's been here, because I wanted to get a jump on this for my client, because, again, didn't have the time. Should be a lot further along, but again, with all the rain and everything else, and the bumper, you guys know the story. So wetting this down will give you kind of a view of what it's going to look like with some finish on it, to an extent. The finish will add a slight bit of a tint to it, the wipe-on polyurethane. This client has requested that I don't put a finish on it, like a finished finish. He wants to do that himself. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to sand this out for him real well, and put a sealer coat or two with the wipe-on polyurethane, and I'm going to give him some tips. And he's going to do the rest of the finish himself. Really cool dude. Let's see what this looks like here. And as I pointed out, this is all going to become about the same color. And I elected to have this flame run in this direction and that flame run back in that direction. Kind of the same thing here. This generally looks like it's going that way. This one has it going in both directions because there's that center pattern. I'm just, I'm trying to balance things out. I do have a knot here. In the old days, what I would do here is what's called a Dutchman patch. I'd cut that out. But I've got a new technique that I love doing, which is getting some dark wood and basically using some glue and hammering it in to that, and then shaving it smooth. And after I sand it and I apply it, it just makes it look like a nice tight knot. The Dutchman patch, you're going to see the Dutchman patch versus this. I like this, actually. And there's a few little tiny ones in here. Nothing wrong with that. It's walnut. That's what's beautiful. So I have to lift this and have to wipe off the glue underneath here. But you can see this thing is dead flat. I'm just going to get a straight edge and lay it on there. Keeping in mind, there's a slight little, actually that's perfect, little bit of a ridge right here. Just the slightest bit of a ridge right there. I mean, you could barely feel it with your fingertip. Like I said, I'll use the cabinet scraper on that and sand it smooth. You'll never know it was there. It's pretty wild. Looks like this grain looks like dog hair, doesn't it? Looks like the coat of a dog, kind of. It's just, walnut's beautiful. You build up enough finish, too. You get this depth. And the finish I use is oil-based, so it soaks into the grain, and that's what gives it the depth. The water-based finish typically doesn't do that. Water-based finishes typically sit on the top of the wood. I don't like using that stuff. All right, I'm just laying some edges up on here. When you have that little bit of a ridge, there's a little one right here. It's flush perfect here. Little bit of a ridge here. What that does is it'll amplify. You put something on here and I'll see light. But again, it's less than a 32nd of an inch, about a 64th of an inch, if that. But what I'm doing here is I'm eyeballing this for flat across the boards. I mean, that's very good. It's very flat. And double checking. Yeah, I'm in real good shape with this, so I'm very happy. Flip this over. I'm just keeping you here. I'm going to keep talking. It seems like some people enjoy this sort of thing. The thing about this plastic, and I forget what kind of plastic it is, it's the sort of stuff you can buy from woodworking companies to make fences out of. I don't mean fences for around your house. I mean like tool fences. It's slick. I can't think what it's called. Now this is the underside. I'll show you that. There's a bigger knot here. If for some reason this thing, I'm kind of shocked. For all the trouble I had and all the concern that was welling up inside of me over this, because this one stinking board here, it turned out so good that even what's I would consider the bottom of the table is good enough to use as the top of the table. Even with that big knot, which I could cram the wood in there like I mentioned up above. This sort of knot here, again, I'll show you in a moment. Just want to get this little bit of glue off of here. By the way, there's nothing wrong with doing this. I love adding water because it raises the grain. After I scrape this and sand it, I'm going to wet the whole thing down and raise the grain and sand it again. And I do all that before I apply any finish. This way, when I apply my finish, it doesn't raise the grain. It's another thing people don't seem to know about. They'll build something, they'll sand it, they apply finish, and then it's like, it becomes rough. It becomes rough because you've raised the grain. The moisture in your finish has raised the grain. So raise your grain first, sand it smooth, then apply your finish, and you won't get raised grain. And then you could put 2-3 coats on without sanding in between to build up some finish, then do a real fine sand. Then apply a finish, and now you're like almost done. And so it's, you know, these are things I've learned over the years of making. I mean, you can go to Mike Z Design on Facebook. I've got a website, www.mikezdesign. It's antiquated, it's old. You can read about me, how it works, how I do things, that sort of thing. But the pictures of the furniture there it's pretty old stuff, and I've done way nicer stuff. I did that website a long time ago. But if you go to the Facebook Mike Z Design page, you'll go to photos, go to albums, you'll see everything. And I do all kinds of things. Again, I'm a secret. I wish people knew about me. I wish all I had to do was just do cool furniture pieces. My life would be so much nicer. So there's the back side of that knot. If I had to use this side for whatever reason, I would do a Dutchman patch here. And all a Dutchman patch is me making a piece of wood to cover that, precisely an accurate thickness, drawing it out using just the way I would inlay a butterfly mortise. It's the same steps. Cut it out with a chisel, set a straight bit on a router, remove the material, glue the piece in, sand it smooth. So you're creating a puzzle piece There's the part it goes into. It's, you know, I think you guys understand it. So that's the bottom side of the table, and it's actually pretty nice too. So that's it for now. You know, I have to figure out what end I'm going to cut more off of. It might be very equal. You know, this next step is very important. So as I mentioned, I'm dead on balls accurate here. I'm on the money at 29 inches. So I've got to get 29 inches this way, and those lines have to be perfectly square from this end and that end. That's going to take some time because I'm crazy for me to get where I want it. Like, I'm going to be double checking these lines over and over and over again, triple checking them, quadruple checking them. You get the idea. I'm going to scrape this first, you know, to get these this little bit of a ridge to disappear. I had that scraper out right now. I know it's somewhere. I'll do it right now for you. But I'll scrape this smooth. I'll use a track with my saw, my Festool system. And I've got a track saw that's Makita that works with the Festool tracks, which is awesome. And I'll get that line perfect, and I'll just... The beauty of that track saw, let's say I'm off a 32nd of an inch or something. I can literally move it that far and cut it, and it's still perfect. It's amazing how the refinement that you can do on that. So again, this has to be 29 by 29, has to be perfectly square, so that when I put the frame around, which they're like 4 1/4, which means my ends now, they'll be more like 37.5 at the end, and I'll be at least 38 inches at the center with a slight bow. I'm repeating myself. All right, you guys have a good day. I hope you got something out of this, you enjoyed it. I think this is really just me showing you that I'm not a bum. Have a good day. Be nice to one another. I'll catch you in the next one. Found it. Yeah. Show you guys from the direction. Angling it will keep you from getting some chatter. You'll get a little chatter from time to time with this. You just gotta... What I need to do is put a blanket down and do this on the table surface instead of doing it up on here. But I figured I'd... You could scrape the entire surface and not even use any sandpaper. Yeah. And the issue with this now is going in the correct direction with the grain, because it'll lift up on you. It'll peel up. I'm talking, listen, I'm getting really nuts with this. I'm talking, you know, micro fiber lifting. So, you know, once it's all, this is the sort of thing that comes off, right, when you're doing this. I shouldn't be doing this the way I'm doing it. It should be lower. I can get my body lined up better, but of course you have to know what this tool is. You have to know how to tune this tool. You have to know how to sharpen this blade and set it up correct. There's a lot to know here, but And look, there's guys that you might be watching this and you've been doing this longer than I have, and you might think I'm doing something wrong, and that's fine. This is just what works for me. My videos, again, they're never how-to videos. It's just how I'm doing it. But this is how I like to do it. I like to go ahead and scrape my seams, double check everything with a straight edge. You might end up with some weird high spot or something, and then just come back in there and take the high spot out. And I'll do all that with straight edges, and then I'm going to come in and sand it. I've mentioned it before, but I did shut the video off and now I'm still talking. But I did mention it before where I prefer the sheet sanders over the random orbit sanders. I feel like the flat rectangular square sheet sanders produce a better finish. And really with this is going to be so perfect. I could probably just go with sandpaper on a block and go with the grain, and that's probably going to give me a much better finish, which is what I may do on this when it's all said and done. This is just about perfect right now already. That's how easy that was. It seems easy now because the amount of time I put into it. You understand? You heard? Again, I hope you enjoyed it. Be good to one another. I'll catch you in the next one. Let me talk for another 20 minutes and give you that spiel again at the end of that.